For over half a century, Dale Evans stood right next to America's favorite cowboy, smiling, singing, and preaching her deep faith.
Listen, my life was messed up too. And I suppose in one way or the other, I have broken all God's commandments in some way.
But as her life neared its final chapters, the calm mask she wore for decades shattered, all because of one powerful actor. This man mocked her, belittled her, and twisted her strongest beliefs into a cruel public joke. Who would ever dare to treat a legend like Dale Evans as if she was nothing? Stick around. The truth behind this shocking story will leave you stunned. Number 1. Roy Rogers, her famous husband, the same man who quietly silenced her behind closed doors. The whole world adored Roy Rogers, and that's exactly where the problem began. To America, Roy was the symbol of decency, the calm cowboy, the moral hero, the man every child trusted without question. But behind that perfect image, Dale lived with a completely different Roy, one that the public was never meant to see. At home, Roy ruled everything with strict control. What he said went. No debates, no discussions, just orders. Whether it was about raising their kids, faith, or daily choices, his word was law. Dale once confessed that she often felt like a guest in her own home, trapped by the duty to smile and stay quiet so she wouldn't ruin the fantasy America believed in.
Well, at first it made us awful mad over here because of what we're going through over here, and said it made us so mad we don't know what to do, but said now we just ignore it because we know what we have to do over here, and they saw a reason for our being over there.
America loved the picture-perfect cowboy couple, but behind that shining image, Dale Evans lived through a moment that haunted her for decades. During one argument about how to discipline one of their adopted kids, Roy shut her down, hard. He didn't just disagree, he did it right in front of the children, loud and firm, making sure everyone knew who was in charge. His authority was absolute, no questions asked. Dale went quiet, not because she agreed, but because she knew fighting back would shatter the family illusion everyone worshipped. Years later, Dale finally spoke the truth. She said, Roy was gentle to the world, but at home, gentleness didn't always rule. That wasn't bitterness, that was freedom pouring out. Her pain didn't come from cruelty, it came from control, from the emotional distance that made her feel unseen, especially after the heartbreak of losing their daughters, Robin and Debbie. Dale was expected to endure it all with a smile, without asking for real comfort. Roy, on the other hand, dealt with grief by tightening the rules even more, clinging to structure, while Dale desperately needed softness and vulnerability. They never found that middle ground. She never left him, never spoke against him publicly while he lived, but inside, that quiet resentment turned to stone. By the time Roy passed in 1998, all chances for truth or healing were gone. It was too late for apologies, too late for peace. Dale Evans didn't hate Roy out of rage, she hated him in silence, and that silence drained decades of her emotional life. Number 2. John Wayne, the larger-than-life Hollywood legend who took things even further. If you asked anyone back then who ruled Tilton Town, they'd say it without thinking, John Wayne. And that's exactly why Dale Evans despised him more than she ever dared to admit. John Wayne knew exactly how to use his power, and he used it to humiliate Dale Evans right in front of people who already questioned if she even belonged there. He loved being the loudest in any room, whiskey in hand, voice booming, tossing jokes like punches that always landed. Dale was his total opposite, calm, polite, steady. She didn't compete for attention, and to Wayne, that quiet confidence drove him crazy. One night in the late 1940s, during a big Hollywood gathering full of producers, stars, and studio executives, things took a nasty turn. Dale made one simple choice. She turned down a drink. Then, when the conversation turned crude, she calmly stepped away. But Wayne spotted it, and he wasn't about to let that slide. He lifted his glass high, smirked, and shouted loud enough for everyone to hear, "God doesn't make movies, men do." The crowd burst out laughing. Wayne soaked in the moment, proud of himself for getting the room on his side. That laughter wasn't harmless, it was a show of power. Dale stood there frozen for a split second. No fake smile, no nervous laugh. She just picked up her purse and walked right out, silent but strong. That exit hit harder than any comeback could have, because everyone in that room knew exactly what had gone down. Wayne didn't just make a joke, he drew a line in the sand, and he made sure Dale was left standing on the weaker side of it. Later, Dale said, "I don't mind disagreement, I mind being turned into a spectacle." That was the real wound. Wayne's disrespect wasn't casual, he performed it, loud and proud, knowing she couldn't respond without being painted as preachy or fragile. After that humiliating night, Dale Evans made sure to keep her distance from John Wayne, every single chance she got. She turned down joint events, avoided photo ops, and brushed off any social invites where his name appeared. When reporters later asked her why, she kept it short and sharp. "I don't share rooms with men who mock what keeps people standing." That line said it all. Wayne never apologized, not once. He didn't think he owed her, or anyone, an ounce of regret. That cruel moment never left Dale's mind, because Wayne hadn't just mocked her, he laughed at her faith. That kind of insult doesn't fade, it burns deep and lingers for years. Number 3. Clark Gable, the Hollywood king who made Dale Evans disappear without ever saying a word. The man everyone called untouchable was charming on camera, but cold as ice behind the scenes. He had the kind of presence that could erase someone just by pretending they didn't exist. From the first day Dale and Gable worked together, she could feel it, that invisible wall between them. Gable never said hello, never even looked her way unless the cameras demanded it. When they blocked scenes, he'd lean toward the director, whispering, subtly shifting things so he stayed centered, while Dale was nudged out, literally pushed to the edge of the frame. The crew noticed, of course, but nobody dared step in. Gable had power, and everyone knew the rules. If the scene wasn't about him, rehearsals suddenly didn't matter. If the spotlight belonged to a woman, call times mysteriously changed, and somehow she always paid the price. So, when the cameras finally rolled, everything looked perfect, but underneath that polished Hollywood magic, Dale Evans was being quietly erased one scene at a time. The scene was running smoothly, the dialogue flowing like clockwork, and then, out of nowhere, Clark Gable just stopped. No warning, no cue. He glanced down at his sleeve, looked up towards the lights, and without saying a word, he walked right off the set, silent but strong. That exit hit harder than any comeback could have, because everyone in that room knew exactly what had gone down. Gable didn't just make a joke, he drew a line in the sand, and he made sure Dale was left standing on the weaker side of it. Later, Dale said, "I don't mind disagreement, I mind being turned into a spectacle." That was the real wound. Gable's disrespect wasn't casual, he performed it, loud and proud, knowing she couldn't respond without being painted as preachy or fragile. After that humiliating night, Dale Evans made sure to keep her distance from John Wayne, every single chance she got. She turned down joint events, avoided photo ops, and brushed off any social invites where his name appeared. When reporters later asked her why, she kept it short and sharp. "I don't share rooms with men who mock what keeps people standing." That line said it all. Wayne never apologized, not once. He didn't think he owed her, or anyone, an ounce of regret. That cruel moment never left Dale's mind, because Wayne hadn't just mocked her, he laughed at her faith. That kind of insult doesn't fade, it burns deep and lingers for years.
Number 3. Clark Gable, the Hollywood king who made Dale Evans disappear without ever saying a word. The man everyone called untouchable was charming on camera, but cold as ice behind the scenes. He had the kind of presence that could erase someone just by pretending they didn't exist. From the first day Dale and Gable worked together, she could feel it, that invisible wall between them. Gable never said hello, never even looked her way unless the cameras demanded it. When they blocked scenes, he'd lean toward the director, whispering, subtly shifting things so he stayed centered while Dale was nudged out, literally pushed to the edge of the frame. The crew noticed, of course, but nobody dared step in. Gable had power, and everyone knew the rules. If the scene wasn't about him, rehearsals suddenly didn't matter. If the spotlight belonged to a woman, call times mysteriously changed, and somehow she always paid the price. So when the cameras finally rolled, everything looked perfect, but underneath that polished Hollywood magic, Dale Evans was being quietly erased, one scene at a time. The scene was running smoothly, the dialogue flowing like clockwork, and then, out of nowhere, Clark Gable just stopped. No warning, no cue. He glanced down at his sleeve, looked up toward the lights, and without saying a single word, he walked right off the set. The entire room froze in silence. No one dared move. No one even whispered. Minutes ticked by before an assistant director finally crept up to Dale, voice low and nervous, telling her they'd be resetting the scene. When the rewrite came through, Gable's part had been erased completely. The camera would now stay focused on her. It seemed like a compliment, but Dale understood the real message loud and clear. Later, she found out this kind of stunt wasn't rare for Gable. His reputation was his shield, untouchable. If a scene didn't make him shine, it got rewritten. If a woman's performance outshined his, things mysteriously changed. And so, actresses learned to adapt, to survive by staying silent, smiling through the disrespect. Years later, Dale summed it up perfectly to a close friend. "He didn't insult me, he made me irrelevant." That line cut deep. She knew that standing up to him would have ended her career overnight, so she kept quiet to protect it. But that silence never stopped haunting her. To Dale, Clark Gable became living proof that Hollywood didn't always silence women with harsh words. It did it through cold indifference, by pretending they didn't exist. And that kind of hatred, it digs in deeper and lasts longer than anger ever could. Number 4, Gene Autry, the smiling rival who quietly blocked her every move. When people list the men Dale despised most, they often skip over him. But Autry's betrayal was different. It came through silence, timing, and doors that shut behind her when she wasn't even watching. That quiet game Gene Autry played made him more dangerous than the men who came for Dale Evans openly. Long before the fame battles began, Autry was already the cowboy guarding his own throne, terrified of losing ground. When Dale started rising beside Roy as the Queen of the West, Autry didn't see a fellow performer shining, he saw a threat to his empire. And that's when the hostility began, soft, sneaky, and silent. At first, Dale just felt the shift, small things but sharp enough to sting. Scripts that used to come her way suddenly stopped. Invitations that once sounded warm turned vague, then vanished. A radio appearance she was promised, abruptly rescheduled. None of it looked random, yet none of it left a trace. Behind closed studio doors, Autry was playing the long game, pulling quiet strings with producers who owed him favors. He whispered in the right ears, steering network execs towards safer projects that conveniently didn't include Dale. He even pushed scheduling changes so Roy and Dale's show aired against tougher competition, all to dim her spotlight. His plan was simple: keep her visibility low, keep her power contained. Then one day, a producer finally slipped and said the truth out loud. "Gene doesn't want you getting too big." That single sentence hit Dale harder than any insult could. She instantly saw the full picture. Autry wasn't going after Roy, he was going after her. The audience had started to love Dale just as much as Roy, and that scared him. What cut the deepest wasn't just the sabotage, it was how perfectly Autry masked it behind charm and smiles. The cowboy everyone adored was quietly tightening the reins on the woman who threatened his legacy. Gene Autry kept that fake charm polished to perfection. At public events, he smiled wide, shook hands, and spoke sweetly about healthy competition. But as soon as those cameras stopped rolling, he was back on the phone, quietly closing doors that could have opened for Dale Evans. She never called him directly. She knew that kind of fight couldn't be won in Hollywood. Instead, she played it smart, declining shared appearances, keeping her distance, and letting silence speak louder than confrontation. Years later, Dale summed it up in one chilling line: "Open enemies don't frighten me, quiet ones do." Gene Autry never confessed to what he'd done, but Dale never forgot the truth behind his smile. In Hollywood, the most ruthless attacks come dressed up in politeness. Those handshakes and compliments, they were weapons disguised as kindness. Number 5, Bob Hope, the man who crossed a line Dale Evans could never forgive. By the time we reach him, her story takes a shocking twist. This wasn't a cowboy, and it wasn't a rival fighting for fame. It was America's favorite funny man, the one everyone trusted to make life feel lighter, Bob Hope. Dale didn't see him as competition. She didn't fear him. She actually enjoyed his comedy at first. But everything changed the night he decided her faith, her pain, was just another punchline. It happened during a live television broadcast. In the middle of his usual routine, Hope cracked a joke about the holy cowgirl, saying she was so pure, so squeaky clean, she looked like she'd been manufactured. The audience laughed, but the sting behind it was brutal. His message was clear. Her faith wasn't real. It was just another Hollywood costume, polished and fake, like fringe on a cowboy jacket. The audience laughed right on cue, but Dale Evans didn't move an inch. She didn't smile, didn't fake a laugh, didn't play along. She simply looked down, hands folded tight, waiting for that segment to finally end. Later that night, a member of the production staff tried to brush it off, saying Bob Hope didn't mean any harm. But Dale wasn't fooled for a second. She said quietly he knew exactly what he was doing. He knew it would land. What made it even worse came later. Bob Hope repeated that same joke at another event, this time sharper, meaner, dragging out the laughter even longer. That repetition told Dale everything she needed to know. The joke wasn't spontaneous, it was calculated, and it was profitable. For Dale, faith wasn't an act or a piece of Hollywood branding. It was her lifeline. It carried her through unbearable losses, through the deaths of her daughters Robin and Debbie. It kept her steady through loneliness, through years of grief that never truly faded. So when her faith, the very thing that held her together, became a comedy punchline, it felt like her soul had been stripped bare in public. She didn't confront him. She didn't demand an apology or issue a statement. Instead, she went silent, and that silence hit harder than any words could. She turned down every invite connected to him. Joint appearances? Impossible. And when someone asked her privately about it, she gave a short, cutting answer: "I don't laugh at people's lifelines." Bob Hope never apologized. He never acknowledged the damage, and Dale knew he never would. She didn't rage, she endured. But endurance leaves scars, and Dale carried those scars quietly for the rest of her life. After everything, the control, the mockery, the betrayal, Dale Evans proved one thing: strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the calm voice that refuses to break. Which of these men do you think hurt her the most, and why do you think she stayed silent so long before sharing her truth? Leave your thoughts below and subscribe for more stories about the truths Hollywood legends were never allowed to tell. Don't forget to like, share, and comment. Your voice keeps their hidden stories alive.